Good evening, everyone. Capacity crowd this evening. Today is Tuesday, October 8th. It's about 7 o'clock. Tonight is a Planning and Zoning Commission general meeting and public hearing. We have a pretty straightforward agenda tonight. We are here in Town Hall, room 206, and we're also on TV 79, so welcome to all the viewers. The first thing, commissioners, I would like to do is rejuggle the agenda. We're going to put the second item on the agenda, which is amendment of site plan review first, and then we'll have Hardesty and Handover in their presentation go second. So can I get a motion to amend the agenda to put the consultant interview second? Amy makes a motion, Mike makes a second. All those in favor? Okay, we just got to jiggle the agenda. All right, so Mr. Gleason, the first item on the agenda tonight is going to be the amendment of site plan number 194H as in Harry, special permit application PL 24-119, BMW of Darien at 138 Ledge Road. Proposal to modify the exterior surface facade of the sales building currently under construction. This is a general meeting item, so I'll let Mr. Gleason or Attorney Gleason speak, but this was an application that we worked on, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago.
Yes.
For about a year. They built a new building in the back. They built the car wash. They took down the back half of the BMW building where the service bays were, and now this is the front of the building. So from the record that I read, the applicant, Mr. Gleason and Company, went to the Architectural Review Board and received effectively a denial, an unfavorable report of your application. And then I think I know Jeremy Ginsburg, our planning and zoning director of land use, sent a letter dated May 3rd, 2023. I guess is a while ago, based upon, is it 2023? Is it a year ago?
I think it was.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Saying that they're going to uphold they're going to uphold what was denied, I guess, from the ARB. Just before you speak, and I'll allow you to speak, to my knowledge, we have never overturned the ARB in the 10 or 12 years I've been on the commission.
I'm not familiar with any approval, but this application.
Just state your name for the
Okay.
record. Just so I
Wilder
have them.
Gleason with Gleason and Associates.
Thank you.
This application did not receive a report from the ARB initially.
Okay.
We brought it to you without a favorable or unfavorable report.
Right, I remember.
And then as a result of that, we were approved to keep the facade the way it is, because that's what we proposed. And then BMW National requested that we consult to see if we could change the facade. We have existing gray metal panels. They've worked for 35 years, and National wants us to put EFS in. EFS requires maintenance. It's exposed to the soot of I-95, et cetera, and these panels that are there will work, have worked perfectly. So ARB said no when we went to them earlier this month. We can live with that, frankly.
Okay, so you're going to say you can live with the ARP's decision, but somebody else does not, so you're just here to say?
I'm here to say if you guys deny our request to change our facade to EFS, the applicant will actually be quite happy.
Okay, all right. This is a general meeting item, so there's no real discussion. Does anybody have any discussions on this? The ARB said they could not change the facade. We were never supposed to change the facade, and now someone's coming in and asking us to change the facade.
I went to the ARB meeting. So.
Oh, you did? Wow, nice.
Yeah.
We're good? Mr. Gleason, I regret to tell you, but your application to overturn the ARB has been denied.
Thank you.
You can tell Miss Kalari, Paula,
I will so inform her, and she will
Never
be-
mind, I
she'll be
apologize
happy. Thank
for
you.
turning her down, but she's been turned down.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. All righty, that's the end of the first item on the agenda for the general meeting. The second item on the agenda, This consultant interview for 2026 Plan of Conservation and Development is going to be put forth by Harnessing Hanover. Welcome, folks. We received your document in advance. I think most of us read it online or in person. We'd love you just to present to us and tell us your qualifications and whatnot and how you can help out the town. It's very important to us, and I was involved in the last one, and it's 10 years later, we got to do another one.
Yeah, here
Welcome.
you are again.
Exactly.
Is it okay to speak from here, or do I need to speak into the mic?
You can speak wherever you're most
Okay.
comfortable. Before you get started, just for the record, please tell our esteemed Karen your name and qualifications. That would be great.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Brown. I'm a principal planner
You need to
at.
speak into that.
Oh,
You said.
oh, I don't. Okay. I'm a principal planner at Hardesty in Hanover.
Fantastic.
Right, we don't need to speak into the mic, or do we?
That's for TV 79, right?
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that's also for TV 7.
Just move that one closer to you, if you don't
Yeah, and
mind.
you could stay seated if you'd like, yeah.
So the people at home can hear you.
Got it.
because If we pick the wrong consultant, we'll close it out.
So I'm sorry, so go ahead and repeat your.
Oh, that's okay. I'm Sarah Brown. I'm a principal planner with Hardesty in Hanover.
And my name is Neil Desai, also principal planner at Hardesty in Hanover.
So, thank you very much for considering our proposal that we have put before you. We're excited to talk to you tonight about our thoughts for your 2026 POCD. Before I hand everything over to Neil, who will be the project manager on this, I just wanted to introduce Hardesty in Hanover. I know you're familiar with us. Our colleagues in the traffic department are your traffic consultants, Greg Del Rio, Steven Sapala. So what we are is we're the community planning group, which is within the engineering firm of Hardesty in Hanover. We provide support services to the engineers, but we also are our own group and we have our own clients and do our own thing. So many nights of the week, you will find me actually on that side of things. I'm the consultant planner to several municipalities and review their planning and zoning applications. So I have a good knowledge of planning and zoning and the things that you face when you see these applications all the time.
Are you mostly in New York or Connecticut?
I'm mostly in New York, but I'm in Westchester. I work in the Rye office.
Do you work at where?
In the Rye office, yeah. So we do primarily focus on communities in New York and Connecticut. As the planning group, we do not work for developers. We only work for municipalities and agencies. We feel like that gives us an advantage. We're never conflicted out on something, or we're always looking and working for your best interest. We never work on the other side of the table. We have engaged in online work and in-person meetings. We're open to doing all of that. We've found that there's pros and cons to both, but during the pandemic, we did learn that online engagement does bring some people out that we don't always hear from. So we think that's an important aspect of this. Neil's going to get into more of that when we talk about engagement. Another, I think, positive and thing that I want to highlight about us is that we do work with engineers. So when you're going through this process, if we are looking at plans or concepts for anything from stormwater to traffic, anything engineering related, we're actually going to put together plausible concepts that are realistic and that could realistically be implemented. A lot of the time, conceptual plans happen in POCDs, and they can't actually be done in the real-world environment. So I think that is a positive aspect to what we do. So as far as our team, like I said, Neil Desai will be the project manager. Neil has just finished doing a comprehensive plan in the village of Mamaroneck near our office. Victor Minerva, who is the director of planning, will do the QC for the project and also work on the implementation plan. You'll see some familiar faces up there. Greg Del Rio will be working on traffic and mobility. He'll be assisted by Steven Sapala, who has also worked in the town for several years. We have Ayaka Mir on our team. She's an architect, and she does urban design. So a lot of downtown plans. She's great with that. And then myself, Malcolm, and Chris all work in planning and zoning. We would be involved in the land use sections and with the public engagement sessions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Neil.
Thank you, Sarah. And Sarah has several more years than me in Hardesty, so I wanted her to do the introduction of Hardesty and Hanover. So the 2016 POCD, the RFP has, I want to acknowledge that the RFP has, set forth expectations for this next endeavor, the 2026 POCD. It's still a valid document. The goals are valid. There may be things in there which have not yet been implemented, things which have been implemented. The structure seems to work and has worked. It's conservation, development, infrastructure, that kind of three-way breakdown of the entire booklet, which is nicely done in the 2016 POCD, seems to work well. So I just want to acknowledge that, the charge you're providing us, we're not necessarily coming up with something new and earth-shattering. We're working within the framework of something that has existed and worked well for you, for the town. But I also wanted to bring up just how much has changed since 2016, or even 2014 or 15 when the planning started happening. And this is not a surprise to you, all of these different things: COVID, demographic shifts, working from home, office markets. I don't need to, these aren't anything new to you, but there's been a lot of changes, as well as acceleration of changes. There are certain, housing and affordability were issues in 2015-16, but things have just recently accelerated to another level, as with many of the other variables, items here: changing climate, storms, flooding, heat, the various forms of transportation that you're starting to see appear. In smaller cities, you're now seeing, a lot of e-bike delivery and delivery vehicles. And so, these are all different things that communities are starting to adapt to. And so I think what I would suggest in my notes here, what I would want to, I think POCD should tell a story about the context in which a place is operating or will be operating. I think it makes it much more practical when you have a discussion. I think this type of discussion about these various changes and trends is something that would go well into what's currently is the Chapter 3, the planning issues section of the POCD. I think having a sort of trends analysis, going through what is how do we get to this present day, and then what are the planning implications of each of these things. We know that Darien has certainly made strides in addressing some of these things, up on the slide here. But there may be other things which it hasn't yet anticipated, or it hasn't yet started developing policy towards, or any sort of rules, regulatory framework for. So, and the high priority topics in the RFP, I think, some of these are certainly parallel with the trends that I listed on the other slide, but also want to acknowledge the high priority topics that you identified: need, variety of housing, impact of development on infrastructure and facilities as well, and capacity, protecting the natural environment, which I'm sure that's certainly going to include both protection of the existing environment, also protection of the environment from environmental storm factors as well. So this is the 2026 POCD that we'll be launching into, and so we're thinking into the next 10 years, and that's the time range for this POCD, 2026 to 2036. So we want to look in the POCD at, are there things on the horizon that are important to identify and research? Demographic projections, is there any existing demographic projection data that can help inform the POCD and the policies in it? What is going to be happening to the working from home model? Is that going to dwindle, or is that going to stay strong? And how that might impact office markets in Darien? I think what is it? McKinsey is relocated now to here. I heard about that, which is which is interesting. So I'm really interested in what's going to be in the future of work from home and what different corporations are starting to do nowadays, because that's going to have an impact on communities, many communities. Housing prices and rents, interest rates are going down. What's the, is there going to be, well, at the same time, there's construction costs, which are very high and escalating ever more. So what's going to happen in the future to that? And so there's certain things that we can, find more information about, certain things we don't know about. But I think development, of course, what's going to be coming up next in Darien, the questions that you pose in the high priority topics. What is the capacity of new development, as well as the capacity for infrastructure to handle new development? And that could be, and that's a broad question involving library, traffic, fire, parks and recreation facilities. There are many different aspects to capacity to think about. Conservation, what's already happening now with your Great Island Master Plan is very exciting. And, in this POCD, if the master plan itself isn't contemplating this, in the POCD, we'd want to contemplate, well, what's the impact of this, amazing, master plan that comes to fruition? What could the impact, how can it be tied to other aspirations, such as economic development or revitalization of downtown? Is there any way to connect certain aspects of what's happening, what could happen in Great Island with other parts of Darien? In terms of transportation, I asked Greg Del Rio, I posed the question, so what do you think Darien should be thinking about, in the next 5 or so years? He identified a couple of things here: the walkability of downtown spaces, bicycle infrastructure, reimagining Route 1 complete street for safety and complete streets, EV charging stations, looking at existing studies to assess and update recommendations. I think he's putting a plug in for a Norton Heights Station area study, which he worked on and I worked on as well. I believe that you're actually implementing the sidewalks concept, which is great. Saw that. And so those are just some of the things I wanted to ask Greg about that he might suggest that would be appropriate to think about. But ultimately, we're the consultants, and what's who are we supposed to be responsive to, and that's going to be the residents as well as other members of the Darien community. And I just want to say a few things about community engagement. I think one of the key things is to offer multiple ways for people to participate. I think this is, I think 10 years ago, consultants maybe would just have a couple of workshops and call it a day. I think we've gotten a lot better at offering a whole suite of ways that people can communicate with us, online, offline. In-person workshops will certainly have. An online survey is going to be important, quantitative as well as qualitative tool, an online mapping tool to help people, to have people provide more specific geographic input into aspects of town. Pop-up events are excellent because they often attract, we often reach people who may not be engaged in civic matters, but who have something to think about and say. So that's why pop-up events are a very beneficial way to
What is it
engage
exactly
people.
a pop-up event?
So like West Haven, so it's a good question, fair question. If you see the picture of the West Haven for the Plan of Conservation Development, we decided to have they have something called the Savin Rock Festival, which is their beach festival, and we created a booth for the POCD and just talked to people, had them, wrote down, this young woman, we had to write down an idea. As far as a photograph, we did that. But essentially, we engaged people to talk to them. Are you interested in, do you know what the POCD is? No, usually the answer is no, we don't know what it is. And explain things to them. And then you try to generate some ideas on the fly in terms of when you think about the future of this community, which is what we did in this booth. So a pop-up event is just that. Well, it could be something you do at a grocery store where a lot of people, everybody goes to. It could be at a fall festival. It could be anywhere. It's just a matter of being at that place and
How do you
engaging
synthesize the feedback that you get and decipher between who screams the loudest and what's truly a majority trend that you hear? Because there's going to be people in the community that's
Yeah.
going to that'll scream really loud,
Yeah.
you know,
The silent
and create the
majority.
sense of urgency around a topic. And how do you decipher between that noise, and it's a valid input, but versus how that lays out in the trend of the multitudes?
Right, so I think that's the whole reason for offering all these different ways for people to participate, because, you know, we have a workshop. You know, what has the most value? A workshop doesn't have necessarily a higher or lower value than a survey. They each are different types of input. You usually have people. Usually, the case is that they're people. The same group of people are participating in the in-person things as always, and so that's why we are branching out and looking at what are other ways to engage people. Because if you just hold 2 workshops, you're generally going to be getting the people who are familiar with how, you know, boards work or familiar to going to meetings and giving their input. Their input may be valid, but it may not be representative of the whole population, which is why we want to mix all of these different ways of giving input and have it come in different ways. So you can then look at, okay, what's the loudest voices versus what's more representative things.
Would you ever think of going to like the Memorial Day parade? I mean, we have parades here. When the parades happen, people come out of the woodwork.
If I can add something to that, we've talked about doing this in the past. You do get the same people that tend to come out to all the workshops and the meetings. They have more time. A lot of times it's people who don't have small children, maybe not working full time. Something that we found to be effective, and it was tonight when we turned onto the street to come by the ball fields, there was a ton of people there, all with little kids. They don't have time to come up here to your meeting tonight to talk about this. They're trying to get home, they're trying to get showers, they're trying to dinner and go to bed. So having a pop-up event at, you know, Saturday soccer games or the baseball field or something like that, a farmer's market, a parade, those are places where you're going to reach the people who don't always come out to the workshop and have the time to sit and give their ideas. And we've also done this many times. We've held many workshops, and we are used to hearing that loud voice. And we like to hear that loud voice, but we're also good at listening to the quiet one too, and then looking at the data and really seeing what's happening.
Great.
So as far as the data, I'm kind of curious how you would standardize that as far as the workshops or the pop-up events, because one person I think might really be interested in talking about something, but you want to get feedback on all these other things from everyone you spoke with, or there wouldn't be any way for us to look at that data in a consistent manner.
Right, it's going to come in 2 different ways. I think that's why the survey is important, because we want a quantitative basis, and if we do a really good job of promoting it, I think, you know, we could get a solid response that, you know, would be meaningful. I don't know yet what that number would be in Darien, but that's a kind of important quantitative base to start, you know, looking at other input that comes in and how that fits or doesn't seem to fit with what the survey results are saying, which is why, and I'll show you in a little bit how the survey is something we do near the very beginning of the process to start that baseline. But another thing we do is we hold focus groups. I think we have 3 in the proposal we scripted out, but we don't know exactly who they will be. It depends on the need. If we find that the demographic in the survey result is, you know, looking at, you know, an older demographic, that we feel like we're missing a younger adult population, we could supplement that by having a focus group with
Seeking it out.
with young adults,
Specifically seeking it out.
potentially high school students, which is, you know, we've done that. You know, business owners is a common constituency to have a focus group with, because if it's a specifically business owner thing, I think they'll make it a point to come if they're available. So so the focus groups is a good way to supplement and also to hedge, or not to hedge, but to you know, help fill any gaps you might have. We feel like we might have in the process so far in terms of community engagement, if there's anything that we feel is missing.
And I also think part of that too, maybe to answer your question in a little more, as we're getting this data, we're not just going to keep it to ourselves and say at the end of the process, here's a mountain of data that we found. If we're feeling like we're not hearing from somebody, we're going to come to you and say, we feel like we're not hearing from this group, or we're only hearing complaints about traffic. But we know that traffic isn't the only complaints people have in town. There have to be others. And we will have a community engagement plan, but we've also learned that sometimes you have to pivot in that based on the results that you're getting.
Let me just pose something to you that I said to some of the consultants. We've got, I don't know, some like 46 boards and commissions in our town.
Yeah.
And everyone that's really on a board or commission is engaged, because they're taking time out of their day to
Right.
be on the commission. So I think in our prior POCD, I don't know if he went to all of them or he went to most of them, where he went to one of their meetings, which is, some people have a meeting once every 2 weeks, some people have a meeting once every month, and often. So those are something, and I know you guys did like, a menu of pricing and what it's gonna cost, but I want to kind of sort of make you go to the, to the Commission on Aging and the Youth Commission and those guys, because those people are there. Is that something that's typical, that you would typically do?
That's in our scope to do. Now we deliberately say the word communicate with town committees. We don't put a number on that, partly because, we never know. We know that towns have a lot of committees. We never know. Some are, for very, very specific purposes, which may not be appropriate.
Monuments and ceremonies,
Yeah,
Yes.
things like that.
graveyard
Would be.
commission.
Right.
There are committees which may be defunct or haven't met in a long time. So the key word is we'll communicate with the towns and committees and commissions that are most relevant to the POCD, and that's the way we would engage them. And typically, it would start out with we want to. We want to, of course, research what they've been up to. Usually the minutes will tell us that sort of thing. So we'll try to put together a questionnaire for, sometimes we do it with the same questionnaire for all the committees, or a more specified questionnaire for each committee. And we'll start with that as the conversation piece before we meet, so we can make the meeting more productive,
Okay.
and that sort of thing.
Thanks.
So, yeah. In other towns, there's many committees, and
We have a coastal waters commission.
yeah.
New Britain does not have a coastal waters commission. I can guarantee you that,
Right.
right? So those guys, who's that? Flip Hufford's the guy?
Flip and Bill
Yeah.
Cavers. And
Yeah, these guys
there's
had,
a couple others.
there's a whole section in our old POCD for that. So you gotta engage with them in some way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, without a doubt, I think that was. That's in some of the committees worked with. They're the ones who, particularly nowadays, it's the traffic-oriented committees, ones that are involved in active transportation, traffic. They're very active and committed, and proposing solutions and identifying traffic issues and this and that. So that's just and that type of action intelligence is things we need to hear about, want to hear about. So yeah.
We need as much data from the community as we can get, because we need to analyze data for you to be able to produce POCD for
Okay.
you.
As far as I just wanted to just show how how we might deploy each of these different tools, website, survey. I said the survey is something we would probably do very, very early on in the project when it starts, assuming possibly in January if this gets started in November. And so on and so forth. The pop-up event, workshop. Maybe we can move the pop-up event to May, so it's the Memorial Day parade. So yeah, this is the kind of thing we have an idea generally of what we'd like to do, and depending on the circumstances in the town, we make kind of shift things around as necessary. And I think the last slide, if you want to talk a little bit about
Yeah, so implementation, which is also important, and sometimes it's the forgotten element of a POCD. Everyone is, so glad we've analyzed the data, we know what the town is looking for, we've included it in, but we actually want to implement something at the end of the day. So what we plan to do is to give you substantive guidance with recommendations. So if there's maybe zoning changes that you've looked at, or land use changes, or improvements to an intersection or something, we're actually going to provide this section that's going to take you through the implementation process, maybe where there's funding sources. Thank you, Neil. Where there's funding sources, having priorities, what is a high priority, what is a mid priority, a low priority, and then a tracking system for you so you can see what has been, what goals you have met, was there a funding source, et cetera, so that this doesn't just become a document that you did and you never refer to again. It's something that you, as a Planning and Zoning Commission especially, will need to have at your fingertips so you can lean on it when you are doing your site plan review and you realize there's some kind of capacity or development issue. You could say, we have this in our POCD and this is how we plan to go forward with it.
Now, with regards to funding sources and whatnot, and New York and Connecticut are similar, but they're different.
Right.
Do you guys have, contacts within the state of Connecticut for some of those funding sources? I know you said you're based in Rye, but it's not the end of the world. But for example, there's, and we know, and other people don't know, in Westport and Greenwich, at the corner of in Greenwich, it's Main Street, or it's Greenwich Avenue, and the cross street, I'm 90% sure is Elm Street. They put in sidewalks that's stamped asphalt. In Westport on Main Street,
Oh, yeah.
and the corner of Elm Street, they put in stamped asphalt. Both of those guys that put that in, that was paid for, some state fund paid for it. I don't know the state
The
fund.
steep, I think for the Westport downtown plan, we had done a similar type of matrix like that, which identified potential sources. I don't know ultimately what grant source they used.
They got the grid, so it comes out of Public Works. I mean, Ed Gentile knows about it,
Right.
and I connected them once, but they have, $2 million a year, and everybody files for, $750,000, and when the $2 million runs out, the $2 million runs out.
We're more familiar with the grant programs themselves as opposed to the, specific context within the
Yeah, I think
programs.
I think it's a great program. But that's my question. I mean, we have bridges that we want to do. The Leroy Bridge.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we do a lot of grant work for our clients that we
Yeah.
do. We just did a bunch of.
Those are the FTA grants. Those are the Bridge Investment Program. But I don't know what scale this bridge is, whether it would be that.
We have a street called Leroy Avenue.
Yeah.
It goes underneath the railroad tracks. It's a car and a half wide, and it's been on the POCD list for 30 years to
Okay.
get widened. Every other town along the strip, they get the money first. We
I
get it.
see. Interesting.
Remember, we got it way back when to do the one on the Post Road, right at since I've lived here, that's 20 years.
Victor's
Victor.
done. I was just
Yeah.
going to say Victor.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that, if you could put that in there, because as a planning and zoning commission, we have no money. We have no money, we have no budget,
Right.
we have nothing. So we have to bump it up the ladder, and the Board of Selectmen might have a different view, and the Board of Finance might have a different view than us. I mean, I had no clue that we were gonna build $135 million worth of schools, when I was in town, but that's what we're doing.
Our colleague Victor Minerva has done quite a bit of work in Connecticut, and he is also one of our grant specialists. So he is probably more versed in that than I am. But it is something that we do have experience with, federal grants and state grants. We do a lot of federal grant work right now.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you want to open up to questions from the board, go one by one? You want to hit me?
Sure.
The question that I have for everybody is, Darien's in a state of change.
Mhm.
And how do you envision making sure you're targeting a plan off of a moving target? We've got half of our downtown, under construction. A miniature downtown that's popping up in the Roten Heights, and
Yeah.
a lot still left to get water to get under the bridge on what all that's going to look like for our community. What does that initially mean to you as a planner?
I think what, as kind of a planner and looking at kind of from the architectural urban design lenses, it makes me think, producing a graphic that clearly shows the form, shapes of each of the developments within the town, so people can see how it all together is starting to, at least come to fruition as a start, so that people can see a picture that can start to give them a more tangible way to see all these developments within the context of the town. And that's essentially what we've done before in comprehensive plans, POCDs,
Be like
where there's
Banana.
been a lot of recent development, and we're trying to give people an idea of what's happened. There's so many developments, but providing a map or something that provides a tool that shows everything that's happened so far in that period of
One
time.
of the feedback that you're going to hear very loudly is kind of like when you're in the middle of a pregnancy, you remember the pain of the pregnancy. You don't 2 years later, and everybody's feeling the labor pains of traffic.
Right.
Yes.
And all of that's happening right now in our community, so.
And then you say I'm not having any more kids.
Yeah, exactly, no more.
And then it wears off, and then.
No more, yeah.
It's a good analogy, but yeah, traffic is definitely the most visible, visceral thing that people react to first, and sometimes it is due to development, sometimes it may not be due to development. So that's a question,
Yep.
important question to answer as well, to make it clear.
And the development is always the easy thing to point to because that's the new thing and that's the thing that we can see. So that must be what's causing it. But like Neil said, it's not always what's causing it. But I would agree, looking at it from like an urban planning lens, showing people what build out is and then including that in your baseline analysis in the POCD. Acting like these things are completely constructed. What
Yeah.
kind of densities are we at?
Got it.
What kind of
Yeah.
traffic
Yep.
are we
That's
at
going
with
to be important
this?
for our infrastructure analysis as well.
Yeah, the
Right.
capacity,
Yeah, and the capacity
Yeah.
analysis,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
And add drainage to traffic.
Yep.
And then you've got
Yeah.
And-
almost the trifecta, you're two out of three.
We
It's also-
were just having this conversation today that stormwater used to be the hidden thing that nobody thought about. And now stormwater is becoming, I don't want to say the new traffic, but it's the other thing that's in everyone's face right now because we get a rainstorm,
Yep.
this road floods, and it never used to. Why is that happening?
Development.
Right. What is,
It's the easy answer to everything.
right. It has to be the development that did this. So, yeah, stormwater is also becoming right there in everyone's face with the traffic.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Like,
So I this may be a little bit too into the weeds, but education of the town, right? I'm a big fan of learning and education and people. I find our biggest issue sitting up here, and this is becoming a me issue, not a town issue, is really like applicants and people who are using this service, understanding really what's going on. And I just don't know if that even comes into the plan of conservation and development, but where I think it would be helpful is look at our application processes and, sort of materials that we're giving to applicants and say, hey, maybe you should be looking at this, this, and this as an applicant. Or if you come in and say, hey, I don't love that there's all this water coming from this development, sort of trying to educate people on that. Do you work with the town on sort of developing that package or educational material?
I know what you're speaking to, and as a consultant to several boards, this is a me problem now too, that I'm hearing you, because I think education of the public is a huge piece of this. How do we incorporate that into the POCD? I think there is a way to incorporate that. I mean, obviously, we're going to educate them on the POCD process, but I don't think that's what you're asking. I think you're
No,
really
he's
asking about
too-
when they come to the board and there's an application and educating the public on what that is.
We often hear after the fact, I wasn't aware of this after many public hearings from people.
Yes.
And so maybe there's some way that we can change our application process itself as opposed to just a notice or like, you know, in the newspaper 2 weeks in advance, like little blurb, something, I think is what.
Yeah,
I'm
just
getting at.
just sort of drawing on your experience, I mean, is that part of that, the overall thing that you look at, which
I mean,
is,
it's a goal. It's a goal of the town. I mean, it's.
Right, you know, the POCD could certainly have a goal and potential recommendations that should be implemented that could go at that topic.
and I just want to clarify, none of this is a dig on our staff or all the
No.
hard work that
No.
they do. It's just a really,
Right.
it's a really complicated, and a lot of these applications are really complicated. And you hit an issue and it's like, oh, no one knew about that. Well, no, actually, we had been looking at it for, 3 months, and we've been talking about it, and we've had the hearings, and nobody bothered to show up and talk to us about it.
I just finished a project reviewing it for community, and we were at the planning board for a year and a half reviewing this application, and then the public hearing happened, and every person that stood up said, I had no idea this was happening. And it's hard to
Maybe that's
say,
just a function of.
we've
of
been
what we
here
do.
every, Thursday of the month for, it's a problem across the board. And so I hear what you're saying, and I think it absolutely is a goal that you can put in your POCD, and maybe it gets moved up to a higher priority. And it's actually not a huge funding source that has to be found to do that. It's something pretty simple that could be implemented.
Well, let me give you two examples. In our little town, if an application comes in to build a doghouse or a skyscraper, there's nothing that's put on site. Okay, in Rockland County, they're gonna build a 300,000 square foot,
Only a demo notice gets put on it.
right,
If
they're
something's
gonna,
being
they're gonna build a
demolished.
300,000 square foot warehouse. There's a piece of paper like this,
Right.
nailed to a stake that says,
That's it.
300,000 square foot warehouse proposed,
Yeah.
come to the meeting on April 23rd.
You can't read that when you drive by.
In Stanford, there's a sign that's 4 feet by 6 feet.
Yes.
That's put out there as public notice, and if you drive by it, it's
You
gonna
notice
say.
those signs right away because you go, something's happening there. And then you
Right.
can go on the website.
In Darien, I don't think we need, I don't know if we need either of those two things.
Mhm.
But what maybe,
We'd have to change our sign policy.
I mean, you can't even, in my hometown on Long Island, you can't even put a sign on your front lawn that says your house for sale. There's no broker, in New Canaan, you can't put,
Not
You
the
could put a
broker
sign,
name,
but it
because
can't
it's by
identify the broker.
yeah.
correct.
Really?
It's just, no,
Wow.
it's just
So,
for
I mean-
sale and a
It's like
number.
you delineate the two towns.
Okay.
So I guess what my
When you stop
question
seeing the
is,
broker,
is it, to Mike's point, if there's certain things that, you have the data on already, that says, every single town in Westchester County has a sign notification on the property and it's up for 30 days. I mean, trust me, if you put a sign on Corbin District that said 250,000 square foot development
Mhm.
proposed, you have people come out of the woodwork.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, is that kind of sort of what,
Yeah, and then, expectations in the actual process itself.
Now, how about the coverage in the media? I mean, sometimes these bigger developments are covered in the media, but does that provide information or no?
It comes to a head at the time
And
the
then it-
actual
Got it.
yeah.
hype gets bubbled up through the system. Yeah.
It's,
Or
yeah,
it's
no, that's
after
just,
the fact, right after the public hearing, then we'll see the
Right.
news
Right,
article in the
that,
paper, and then they miss the window to comment on it.
125 people came out, so then it makes the news. And then the other 300 people that didn't come say, hey, I didn't even know about that. You know?
Right. Which is that, that's also on the public too. If your head's
Yeah.
in the sand,
It's just-
it's not our fault.
It's a difficulty, and it's something that I personally experience in my everyday life. So if it helps to know you're not alone.
I know, and I've done enough zoning where you
Yeah.
see it all over the place. It's just, I just was wondering if that's part of this, or if I'm just coming way out of left field.
No,
It's a best practices thing that that could be an implementation
Yeah.
thing for looking at every 10 years. But
I would say, is it something that traditionally gets covered?
No.
No, but does that mean it shouldn't be? That could actually be one of the most important things that comes out of it, along with, analyzing capacity and development and all of that. But actually, the whole point of this is, like, as Neil had said, engaging the community, engaging the boards, and we want that process to go smoother. So that absolutely can be a goal.
You good?
I'm good.
One thing from a different lens of education, speaking towards actual education, when you're doing the demographics sort of like data gathering aspect of like this online survey or the community engagement, one thing, because we just renovated, or we're in the process of renovating 3 out of the 5 elementary schools, we have in part of that application was a lot of data about future enrollment in those schools in terms of kids, right? Because we're also building a lot of new units in town in all these various developments, which are going to add some kids to the schools, right? And I think when you talk about who the loudest voices are, and you look at the demographics of Darien, where the average age of an adult is around 42, 43, they have 2 kids in elementary to middle school. The average age.
He's 42, he's got 2 kids.
The average
Just for
age,
the record.
exactly. The average age of the loudest person is not going to be that demographic, right? So I think I think it's going to be important to look at not just demographics of the town, but also what future enrollment in the schools are looking like, because that's what's ultimately going to drive what people want to see the next 10 years of this town shape, right? If you're already, kids out of school, you're thinking about downsizing, we're trying to look at some things for you as well, but there's going to be an influx of new people that are coming into this town.
Right, there's
And so,
always.
so this next 10-year plan, we're not really a stagnating town anymore. We're sort of a growing town. So I think we want to kind of reflect that into what we're doing here, because some of those things that this growing town will want to see change in the next 10 years are going to be critical to that mass of people. So I just want to make sure that as part of this, you look at certainly not just the demographics of you can get from like census data or track data, but also what we think of, because we just heard, we're renovating these schools. It's a pretty recent study about what the enrollment numbers of like the youth population will look like, because that will be important to a lot of people.
I think DPS already pays a consultant at least every other year, right?
To do it.
But-
Yeah.
Photographers that do.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you get that and
Right.
incorporate that data, as opposed to, because we heard from the other people about just, census data, which everybody's going to do, that's pretty straightforward. But certainly incorporating, projected school age, demographics, I think is going to be
Right, and
important
that's
as well.
information you have because you're in that process right now, so
Yeah.
it's valuable. And it's probably more realistic than
Right.
just using some multiplier somewhere to try to figure out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Try to
but
apply it.
Malone and McBroom says our school population's going down.
Yeah.
Figure that one out.
Yeah, we'll have the new report, I think in 3-4 months. They just started working on it.
You good?
Yeah.
George?
I've just been thinking of segueing off of Mike's question about education, a different spin than Adam's, but, and I haven't heard the magic words of affordable housing here this evening, so I thought I ought to tee that up and make sure you would understand that I think this will be an important instrument to educate the town about that issue. That a lot of folks coming and going, and a lot of folks with heads in the sand and all that sort of thing. And I heard you're based in New York, but you've done Connecticut towns, so you know about 830G and you know about the 10% goal. And I think when you look at Darien in that light of that issue, you're going to see some interesting nuances different from other towns. The transit-oriented development notion is a fine one, but I think you'll find around here, we're pretty well developed around the particulars of the transit district. I may be told I'm wrong about that, but I think that's a factor anyway. And a number of different things. We're pretty well developed, as Mr. Ginsburg always says, 95% or something like that, not a lot of more space. So those are some things that I think you should be attuned to, and maybe you can tell me whether you do that you've done that sort of thing in the other towns, you understand that the different towns have different issues along those lines despite the state mandates.
Yes, I can speak to that a little bit. As I've said, I do primarily work in New York, but I work in Westchester. And Westchester was under an affordable housing mandate for a long time.
By HUD, by the feds.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that 10% has been incorporated into a lot of zoning codes, but I work in a lot of places. One of the villages that I worked in is a built-out village. I don't want to really I work in
Mamaroneck
Village,
or-
Bronxville, I work in the Village
Yeah,
of
that
Bronxville.
Bronxville's dynamite.
Yeah,
Every store you see in Bronxville on Ponfield Avenue is in Darien now.
yeah. I did notice that.
Yeah, they're exactly the same.
Yeah,
Our rents are $5 a square foot cheaper.
yeah. So we are familiar with that. But the reason I said Bronxville, for example, because they actually weren't under the mandate because they took into account how many apartments were located in co-ops, condominiums around the train station, and they were actually exempt, even though, you know, they are a higher price point, they were exempt from that. So I also work in Village of Rybrook. We've had to incorporate a 10%, Village of Pleasantville. So I am very familiar with different types of housing stock, different places. I've worked in Village of Scarsdale, who's also had to meet those requirements, so.
Did you do Mamaroneck? Who was the lead on Mamaroneck?
Yeah, listen, yeah, that's, yeah.
Because
That
the
was,
difference between Mamaroneck and here
Oh,
is
yeah.
Mamaroneck, Darien was like Mamaroneck 25 years ago, right? Mamaroneck's been dead for 25 years. I mean, they just put in, I think, Plan B Burger on the corner.
say it again, they put in what?
They put it like a burger joint, like it's either
Oh,
Plan
you're talking
B,
about the
Yeah.
downtown. Yeah.
the downtown strip that's off of Route 1. I mean, that's nice, and that's where the movie theater was, all that stuff.
Mhm.
That's,
Yeah.
we were like that 20 years ago, and
Yeah.
Mamaroneck's been dead for decades.
Yeah, yeah.
So they needed you.
They, and.
They did.
Affordable housing, I mean, that ended up being the number, I think it was the number 2 priority in the comprehensive plan. So, you
Then
know,
they have a huge flooding issue too.
that's a massive issue.
It
That's a
actually
really
put
massive
their plan on hold because they got hit with a hurricane in the middle of it
issue.
Yeah.
and had to pivot.
And then COVID, so.
And then COVID. Yeah.
Are you guys, we also just recently implemented,
Did you get your question answered?
Yeah, they're done. I'm fine.
just to dovetail off his, we also just implemented an ADU regulation
Oh,
here.
okay.
So we've just started seeing applications for them. So are you familiar with how ADUs, because we opted out of the state's ADU requirements and then drafted our own regulations.
Okay.
So we would obviously like to build on that as part of affordable housing or different types of housing, different, you know,
Great.
sizes of housing.
Yeah, it's a great way to incorporate different types of housing into,
It's housing that is affordable,
yeah.
not affordable housing that isn't.
Right, housing
Yeah.
is affordable,
Yeah.
more
There's a-
affordable than the other options.
Right.
Yeah, mhm,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But I think that's something where we probably wasn't, or isn't really a huge part of the 2016. But now it will be, you know, should have a much larger footprint since it's very new and fresh and it's sort of a tool we're using to try and get up to those numbers in affordable housing.
Yeah. Yeah, probably in 2060, because ADUs are
No,
more recent,
yeah.
and in the last couple of years have really, but they're a great tool.
Jamie?
Not tonight, of course, but it would be possible for us to see an example of a community survey, the specific questions that you've used in the past.
Oh,
And,
sure.
I think, I saw at the Board of Selectmen meeting that we already have 1,200 responses to the Great Island Survey. So I do
That's
think
great.
you will get a lot of information through the survey. So yeah, I'd be very interested to see.
Sure, can I send it to Fred? And
Yes.
Fred-
Yeah.
What's your typical response rate from the surveys? Do you know?
The most
Had-
we've ever
had to
gotten
go
was
percentage.
Westport. We got about 30% of the population, of the adult
Yeah.
population for Westport, was good.
Okay.
Other than that, otherwise we generally range, you know, in the 12 to 15
yeah,
range,
that's what I figured.
which isn't bad. I mean, you think it would, you know, 10% they say is good, but, you know,
Yeah.
you know, 12, 15% is the typical range.
Okay, I've got a couple, I guess, I don't know if they're specific or not, but about you guys. Because I looked at your resumes and I looked at the dates of the stuff that you use as case studies. And I think you've been at the firm for 2 years, and I think you've been at the firm for 4 years. Is that about right?
I've been there for 5 years, but we were part of the merger. We were formerly FP Clark Associates,
Okay.
who I believe was also your traffic consultant, Michael Galante.
Right.
And I had been at FP Clark since 2005.
Okay, because it's
and
like,
then-
one of the things, your plan of conservation development for West Haven was done in 2017, which is 7 years ago.
Sure.
And I mean, I don't know if either of you two guys were at the firm.
Oh, I did, I was a project manager on that one.
So it's a carryover from the old
It's a
firm?
carry-
Yeah,
Okay.
previous firm.
So it's kind of like a change of the name of the company?
No, that was no, it wasn't FB Clark. I was never at FB Clark. I was at a whole
He
other
was at a
firm.
different firm.
I was at a completely different firm then.
So you did that at the other firm?
I did at the other firm.
Okay.
I was a project manager, but Victor and I were the two people on it, so.
Because that's the same thing with like the Westport plan, that's from 9 years ago.
Yeah, anything from, I joined
it-
in about 2021, I joined H&H. Anything before 2021 would be work that was done at other firms, but I don't think it would be correct to be able to just say, if the other people involved are also currently with me now, like Victor is, I would put them in there, because if there was people here from, that went on other firms, that wouldn't be right to represent that as.
Right, yeah.
As my.
I mean, I'm just
work.
trying to make sure
So-
all the dots connect, because when you say I've been there for 2 years, but your case study is from 9 years ago, I'm like.
Yeah.
Several of us have worked together at a previous firm.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And it's been competitive as of late for POCD specifically, so.
People moving around to different companies.
No, just competitive in terms of not being selected, having selected, a lot of competition.
I mean, it's
There's
a
new
huge
firms that have
expense for
started
us.
coming in, and so that's why you don't see, a 2020 POCD, for me on my resume,
Oh,
because,
okay.
yeah, otherwise there'll be more POCDs on there for me.
Got it,
like
okay.
represent.
Um, The other thing I'm trying to figure out is I have 2 kids in college, and every time I go to a college campus, there's something new that I've never seen. And I think my kid went to like Dubai, and I never saw the stuff that my kids saw in Dubai. I want to know if that stuff's gonna land here someday.
What do you mean?
Like the
Like the tennis
scooters,
court on top of
the
the-
scooters. Like you go to all these other, to me, a college
All around
campus,
town.
to me, like a college campus is like a mini village, and all of a sudden, when they come out of the mini village after 4 years, hopefully after 4 years, then all of a sudden
Fingers
that
crossed,
stuff's
4
gonna come with
years.
them. I mean, like it's a dumb example, but Facebook was invented on a college campus.
Yeah, right.
Now it's the world. So when do you bring in stuff from like around the world that you think might land up here someday? I mean,
Around the world, never, and, we're very careful,
Yeah.
because
Honest answer.
any place we've worked, people will say, that's too far from here, or, so we tend to, if we bring examples to other places, we're careful where we choose it from, because, I think if we put it from like Connecticut, New England, those examples might fly better than something from California. But I would say that, on a smaller scale, like, I don't know what these scooters you're talking about, but, I was talking earlier about the different trends. I mean, how people traveling by electric scooter or e-bike now, those types of things, are already, you see them in cities now.
right, it's New York City, it's called City Bike at a college campus. It's called like EVO or NVO, and you get on the thing, you ride it, and you just leave it someplace.
Yeah.
But yes, I hear where you're going, because.
Because you have to plan for that.
You have to plan for it, and you can be on the roads today and see, some younger kids flying on these things.
No helmets.
With no helmets, and saying, it's not a bike, it's not a car, it's in between,
Right.
and we're not accounting for this in a
Right.
safe manner for our public, for them or for the public. And I've had that thought to say, we're gonna have to figure that one out.
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
police commission's already looking.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I hear what you're saying,
But
and that.
like in new buildings, when we do a new apartment building, we always make sure they have a bike rack.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Right.
I
You know?
get where you're going.
Adam would make sure that happens.
Now more.
That's the
And
kind of
You had
stuff-
like the EV chargers, I think is a big thing,
Greg was
Right,
suggesting
Greg was
that, look at
suggesting
EV
that.
chargers.
right? Because they're
as a
only going to get
requirement.
more and more prevalent over time.
Until they all blow up.
Or catch
Right.
fire.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is, and we talked about it a different time for some other people, and we've all kind of sort of touched on it. There's a capacity study that component of this thing that we need to do, because if we build another 200 apartments there, 200 apartments here, and 300 apartments there, whatever the number is, even if it's 10 or 20, you're eventually going to run out of
Right.
seats in the classroom.
There's a cumulative effect.
Yeah.
All of the.
You're
yeah.
going to run out of seats, and the last thing I'm going to do is approve $200 million project, and then we gotta build a $75,000 grammar school. That's, to me, just makes no sense. So is it something that you can look at that? Like, we have volunteer fire department, we have volunteer
Yeah.
EMS, we have, there's a ton of volunteers in the police department, you know? Half
But
the
it's-
town runs on volunteers.
Right, at some point, where is the line of, here's the development and here are the services we have, and when are we gonna go over that line?
You're gonna tip a scale, and all of a sudden you're
Yeah.
gonna say you have to have, you know, paid EMTs, and you have to have paid firemen, and you have to paid, you know, something else, and then
That's,
also.
that's something that's a high priority for us to understand.
Yeah,
Because then the reason why that happens, and it dovetails into all this other stuff we were talking about, the 830G regulation from the state, sewer capacity is not a legitimate excuse not to build.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it doesn't fly in Greenwich. There's 8-bedroom houses in Greenwich that are on sewer. So what's the difference between an 8-bedroom house and a 5-unit apartment building?
right.
You know, I bet you there's less toilets in a 5-unit apartment building than there's an 8-bedroom house in Greenwich. You know, so you can't, sewer capacity, you can't rely on that. But we need to have something that's in the
But it is an
document.
actual number, there is an actual capacity to it.
Because
that
the
you
two
have to
lines are gonna
consider.
cross. The lines are gonna cross. And if you cross those lines, then you just fell over the
I
edge.
think the fire department's already, I think, looking at needing, or, you know, saying they need more capacity, more, in order to be able to handle a new development, right? So-
But in a developer, like, the federal is a $250 million project,
Mhm.
right? And they say, oh, you know, they want to build 5 stories. Well, we don't have a fire truck that goes out there. We'll buy you one for $2 million,
Yeah.
you know? To get approved $250 million project, $2 million is a rounding error.
Mhm.
You know, that's the kind of stuff. I mean, I think one of the arguments, we didn't have a garage that was deep enough to fit the thing in there,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's the
I know
kind
a
of-
community that happened too.
You know?
But I think that also goes back to what we were speaking about before, about the build-out and what has already been approved and what does that look like?
Yeah,
And where does that put you? And
Exactly.
that's your baseline number.
exactly.
It's not where we are right now with what's built currently, how many
When
units
it's
are in
done.
place, it's how many units have been approved. And then another step beyond that is what is your actual potential build-out? What if
Yep.
something goes out and gets redeveloped
Yep.
into apartments, then where are you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody got all their questions in? We good enough for this? You guys have anything? you
Just
want-
one thing, real quick. Could you speak just very briefly about the incorporation of technology into the plan as far as development of graphics and maps and, you know, you had talked about surveys and, you know, how are you incorporating the technology aspect into the development of the plan?
Well, the number one, the plan itself should be very easily read online. So, like, you know, hyperlinks that click, the table of contents is that functions, people can go straight to the page they want, but that's a kind of very small level. I think for surveys, I've always used SurveyMonkey. It's the best tool. You could do the best. Important thing is being able to cross-tabulate data. Like, okay, so we've heard that 90% of people like fries. So let's divvy that up by the demographics, so you can see, you know, what the demographics are. So that's the best kind of technology I would use for that. For the community mapping tool, I showed a little picture of that. That's a tool called Wiki Mapping, and that's a tool that you can curate whatever you want, and then have people with their own mouse pick points, write a note, and as well as upload a photo if they wanted to, if they felt like it. So that's Wiki Mapping. The website isn't anything special in terms of any special technology that we're using, like publicinput.com or anything like that. It'll just be a site that it'll probably be more dynamic in that, you know, we will try to have integration with social media, depending on if we use Darian's itself or we have to create our own, depending on what we decide for that. Anything I'm missing on in terms of technology?
In the actual plan itself, like Malcolm would be doing all the GIS mapping of like zoning maps and
Right, so the GIS will be all done by Malcolm and probably Chris as well, who's on our org chart. If there's a, story maps is a frequently used kind of narration tool online. If that's something that turns out to be a good way to convey any message we want to convey, we could use that. Sometimes I think the executive summary idea that you wanted to make sure we do an executive summary, I think that was a good suggestion because usually these are thick documents. And to have an executive summary is a great way to synthesize what the main points of the POCD are. I think, where was it going with this? I think.
Well, I think too, it's a lengthy document, so
Yeah.
a lot of figures, a lot of mapping to show examples of what we're trying to portray in the, specifically in the POCD you're talking about, or?
No, the
Yeah,
executive
yeah,
summary.
within the actual document and just
Yeah.
throughout the planning process. So,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
I was
the-
gonna say
yeah,
that.
the
More about the planning
GIS.
process,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, the planning process
A
as well
story
as
map could
the map
be-
creation, the story maps, some of the ArcGIS tools
Mhm.
that are out there to sort of, bring everything together in terms of, the bigger picture. So, yeah, just.
I could see maybe the executive summary being something that is done as a story map potentially. So that's just, it's something to think about. We could do that.
And Neil, what office are you in? Where do you sit every day?
I'm in New York City office.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay. The only thing you're saying, have you guys ever clicked on the Bridgeport new zoning code? It is good, because it's terrible. And you click on stuff, you get pushed all over the place. There's no simple, the steeple Banny chart that's in the back, nothing like that.
Mhm.
That's where you start clicking away inside a document,
And
that's.
it just sends you somewhere.
And you can't even find what the height of a building can be, max. It's impossible. Okay. I think that's it.
Okay.
Is there anything else we have to make a decision on? When are we going to debate this?
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that tonight in terms of the
And when do we
information
want
we
to engage
received.
somebody before the
I
end of
think
the
we
year?
want to pull something together before year end, such that as soon as the new year starts, boom, up and running.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
wonderful.
Thank you
so
for all
much.
your
Thank
time.
you,
Yeah, thank
thank
you.
you for having
Appreciate
us.
it. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
thanks for accommodating the reschedule.
Oh, don't worry about
Sure.
it. It's easy. All right, let's keep moving with the agenda. Next item on the agenda is deliberation of possible decision on the following. Coastal site plan review number 233B as in boy, flood dam prevention application number 261B as in boy, also known as PL 24-87. Justin, what am I reading there? Is it Justin and Lindsay Vinci at 10 Nickerson Lane proposes to construct and install a dock consisting of a fixed ramp, pier, and platform, and perform related site development activities within a regulated area. In our packet that we got over the weekend or before, we have a draft resolution from this. It's a house that's on Nickerson Lane. The dock's going to go on Holly Pond, which is title. Again, we only have a small jurisdiction uptown, upland. Did anybody see any questions, comments, typos, scrivener's errors in this one? I thought I had something in here, but maybe not.
You have,
Three B, Westcog said no. Incorporate by reference. But this was, we have the one, one of these we couldn't find the Army Corps of Engineers, and this one you found it.
Yes.
Okay, there's no settlement controls, okay, I think that's it. You got anything?
straightforward doc.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve as submitted. Amy makes a motion, Adam makes a second, all in favor? Okay,
Thank you.
approved. Next on the agenda is business site plan application number 104C as in Charlie, special permit application number 333A as in Apple, flood dam prevention application number 439A, land filling and regrading application number 558A, also known as PL 24-77, 18 1852 Darien 1 LLC, Cloud 10 Smart Wash at 54 Boston Post Road. Proposal to redevelop the property formerly occupied by Bartucci's Restaurant as a new car wash, including a 5,150 plus or minus square foot building with a wash bay, 34 exterior self-service detailing spaces, 5 employee parking spaces, and perform related site development activities within a regulated area. The hearing closed on September 10th, 2024. The decision deadline is November 14th, 2024. In our packets, we got a resolution for this application. It's pretty extensive. I think it covers most of the items. I have a couple items on here that I want to talk about. So since I'm chairman, I'll go first. What is it? One of the things that I think it's going to come up later, and we asked about it, was any ARB approvals in the future, about if they wanted to change the color from, gray to red.
Sold.
Yeah, if it was sold. I never saw anything like that making it in here. It was going to be modeled after Darren Hollow Tree Self-Storage.
Hold on.
Well, Steve, you're right. I don't believe that there's anything specific in here relative to changes to the facade of the building. With that being said, any changes to the facade of the building that would be proposed either by the current applicant or any future owner of the property would trigger, by default, ARB review.
Can we just add a sentence in there so it's belts and suspenders?
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Wouldn't there be a need for, that would happen if they have to apply for a permit to
Right.
change the facade. I suppose that's a construction permit of some sort.
But
But if
if-
they want to paint it,
Correct.
they don't need a permit for that, do they? And is there any
Right.
way do we get them to weigh in on that? I would think.
They wouldn't necessarily need a permit to paint the building, but they would still need to go before the ARB.
Because we did something specific inside Hollow Tree Self-Storage. Because my example was if it was sold, if Hollow Tree Self-Storage was sold to Cube Smart or Public Storage, every single Cube Smart in the country is red. And they would immediately, 2 days later, they're going to paint the
Okay,
thing
I'm
red.
just wondering, why would they have to go to ARB if they're not coming to us?
I mean, any commercial facade changes, signage, awnings, colors, windows.
But that's why I want to get it inside the
Yeah.
resolution.
Mm-hmm,
All right,
All
then we
of that is required, even if you're not seeking a permit.
correct.
What would happen if they didn't go?
paint it red, then paint it black. Change it back again.
Well, how do we do that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, well, put it in, see what happens.
What else? Da-da-da-da-da-da. Is this number 19? It says the commission finds that converting the property from a restaurant to a standalone wash use is it in itself is a traffic enhancement. Proposed standalone car wash will result in decreased trips in and out of the property when compared to long-time restaurant of use of the premises. Because the traffic consultants kept talking about at the end, like 1%. It's a 1% change, it's a 1% change. And that was immaterial. So is that what this is trying to say? Because it comes up later again, which is number 49. Design location, the specifics of the proposed site development will not adversely affect the safety on the streets nor congestions or interfere with the patterns of the highways. I mean, it's not going to materially affect it, is what the final finding was. But the thing that's an oxymoron in this whole thing is, if for some reason the state comes in 5 years from now and says, "Whoa, this created a lot of traffic," and installs a $500,000 traffic light, that means somebody was really wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
Because they wanted a traffic light for a variety of reasons. And somehow or other, now we don't have to have a traffic light. But this says it will not adversely affect the safety of the streets and change congestions at all.
right.
And the traffic consultant said the change is gonna be like 1% or 2%.
A small decrease.
Yeah.
So the only thing I wanted to do is add the word will not, in the first sentence on 49, so will not materially change. Will not materially adversely affect the safety of the streets.
Just add the word materially.
Isn't that a good lawyer word that you guys like? Because, I mean, it's your testimony when we talk about it, we don't know if traffic's gonna work or not.
Right.
You know, the
I mean,
consultant says it's gonna
and
work.
part of the argument for the light is what we know is gonna happen down the road.
Yeah,
At
Wegmans,
Wegmans and some of these other
Right,
things that
increases.
are,
Walmart,
which
Target, rather.
is something that's
Well, this is
to
related
be
because
determined.
number 12 says that the Cloud 10 car wash has indicated they would be willing to realign its driveway with the intersection, but would be willing, or, I mean, is that strong enough?
No, it says it later, it's required, in the back.
No, it did, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, in the back.
Yeah, that's a finding, the actual there is an actual condition that requires the
Yes.
applicant to relocate the
Yep.
ingress and egress to the site if the DOT does in fact install a traffic signal at the intersection.
Right.
Yeah, there we go, okay.
Maybe at 49, you could say, under the current conditions.
Because what's happening with this, the peak hour of traffic is like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock on a Saturday. The peak hour for the restaurant was not at 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday. It's not, it was, 5 o'clock on a Friday or so. So you're shifting your peak
Jamie, number L.
to a different
Yeah, no,
time.
I'm reading it again now.
Yeah, I think that's one of the differences, Steve, is, and the nature of the car wash. It's unlike a restaurant where you say to the family, let's go, we're gonna go to the restaurant, no matter what type of restaurant it is. A car wash is oftentimes a little different, and you talked about this at the hearing, where it's more of a, while I'm on my way to somewhere else, or the way back, I'll get the car washed.
Right. But in the traffic study, they said the peak time is 2 hours on Saturday, that was never the peak time for a Bertucci's restaurant where you're getting,
That's true.
it's not even open for lunch.
Correct.
So I want to make sure something like that gets in here. A couple other quick hits were, number 25, it says that the markings will be maintained in good order and I wanted to add, and repainted on a periodic basis as necessary. He says he already does that. But remember, if they're not there and they sell this thing, the next guy's gonna be able to do it. Whether that helps or not, who knows? I don't know. What else did I have on this? I think that's it. Now, where is it? Number J is in John. No vehicles or trailers or equipment shall be stored on site at any time or overnight. I don't know if they're gonna have a truck there that says Cloud 9, a van at night that's advertising.
Which would not really be allowed.
Yeah, and that's what they did at Modern Homes, remember? They had that van out
Right,
front. It said Modern Homes. It's not part of the signage, but it was there.
Right. So that
Um,
is covered in J, which is no vehicles, trailers, or equipment.
Okay, because they have a whole bunch of trucks over at Fletcher's, 230, 320, 330. Half of Fletcher's trucks used to be back in there, but not so bad. I think that's it for me for now. Jamie, you want to go first? Anything on this one that popped up?
So there doesn't need to be a time frame then associated with moving the, relocate the approved curb cut to a line?
It could be 5 years from down the road, it could be 10 years down the road.
No, if the traffic light, if it's actually approved, how soon would it need to be complied?
That's a good point.
6 months? Year?
6 months from when the traffic light goes
Completion of the
live.
light.
So that would be a sentence at the end of L. Conditional.
6 months.
This shall be completed in 6 months. The installation of the light.
Anything else?
No.
George?
So, number 19, I'm not sure I want to associate myself with the statement that the commission finds that converting the property from a restaurant use to a standalone car wash use is itself a traffic enhancement.
That's the,
I never had any particular problem with Bertucci's or Cook's before that, or whatever the other one was.
Victoria Station.
Yeah, right. So I'm, you know, I won't go against the whole thing because of that, but I just want to make
Well,
that
the
comment.
consensus is we could certainly scratch that sentence if that's what the commission's comfortable with.
but I'd either scratch it or
Yeah.
change it.
I think the second sentence is the bulk of 19. I don't think you need the first one itself at all,
Right.
right? It will result in a decrease of trips in and out of the property compared to the long-standing restaurant use. Just
But that's my,
Consistent.
yeah, but that's the part where it's not a peak hour. The peak hour is shifting. I mean, yeah, there was more, this has got,
You just put in the word most of the commission.
4 out of 6 dudes on the commission said, sure.
A couple of people
you.
in the explanation of the dicta that
Yeah.
has no bearing on findings.
You want to add a word? What do you want to do? Add
Stick
it?
in the mud.
No, you,
No,
no, I questioned it too.
I'm not gonna worry about it. I just am highlighting that in my personal view of it. What did we do on 49? Did we just add materially, or did we say under the current condition, or what was the resolution of that?
We could I have in my notes adding materially, but what you're suggesting, George, is at the start saying under current conditions,
Yeah,
or as presented.
right. Yeah, because Wegman doesn't exist yet, and other potential
Yep.
traffic impacts. So I would favor that, under the current condition, or as presented at this time, something like that, whatever. Currently. You get
Okay,
it?
yeah.
Okay. That's all I'll pick on at the moment.
Coming back to number 19, are we striking that first sentence?
But the second sentence has got a problem too. Because like I said earlier, the peak hour is shifting.
Right.
Just remember 19.
You could certainly strike all of 19.
Yeah, get rid of 19.
I mean, we could strike all of 19. The reason this
Yeah.
finding was included in the resolution was that testimony was entered into the record that as a result of this new development, this new car wash would generate less traffic than the restaurant use would. So maybe there's a better way that we can put that down on paper here, or we can just strike it altogether.
I like that.
Just
Problem is
strike
that
it.
when a restaurant comes back and makes an application, you don't have the argument that you approve this because it was less intensive, which is the testimony that we received.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so
Yeah.
when someone comes back and wants to put Bertucci's Cooks and do two in Victoria Station and Cracker Barrel and whatever else,
Cracker Barrel.
whatever
Well,
restaurant.
is it just a matter of discussing over, weekly?
Yeah,
Weekly
it's
decrease in
weekly.
trips into and out of the property? I know you're fixating on peak time, which is a shift, and there's gonna be times where one's higher than the other. Is it better to put a timeframe, descriptor around it? Would that satisfy George and Steve's concerns?
In the second sentence, you can
Yeah.
probably do that. I'd still take out the first sentence, that's like,
Okay.
you're willing with.
Proposed standalone car wash will result in a decrease of, weekly trips in and out of the monthly, whatever. Is there a description, Steve? I know you were fixated on the peak
Right.
change being different.
You could just say
That's it.
peak is change.
Yeah, will result in the change of the peak times and traffic.
When compared to the long-time restaurant use of the premises at its peak hours rather than peak hours?
Just strike 19.
Yeah, I don't think we're adding anything.
Yeah, we're not
Any of
making
that.
it better, just kill the whole thing.
Just get rid of,
We'll
take
kill
out
the whole
19.
thing.
Mhm.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine. Either way, I'm fine. In
Doesn't
or out.
move the needle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like so many things.
You good, George?
Yes, thank you.
Adam?
Fred, did we figure out the owner's address?
Yeah, the address is under first page, name and address of property owner and applicant. You'll notice it says Stamford, Connecticut.
Nice.
28 Thorndale Circle is correct. That is in Darien, Connecticut, not in Stamford.
You have to hold that. You have to hold that. That's for Scribner's errors and typos.
Hey, I
Look at
got
that.
it.
It's,
I knew that
he
was-
wants credit for that.
Something was wrong. I think it, I don't think it matters since we're striking that, but I didn't see it in here. But I think it's important to note the traffic study is as if a restaurant were in use and not now where it's generating no trips.
Right, yeah.
So traffic will get worse as of now because there's nothing there.
Right.
But it will be less bad than as if Bertucci's were operating all the time. But I didn't see that reflected in here at all. I don't know if we want to say that somehow, because my fear is that the public isn't going to be able to make that distinction, and they're just going to be like, now there's a car wash, the traffic is so much worse. You said the traffic wasn't going to get better, and it's like, well, relative to an empty parking lot, yes, it will be worse because there is no traffic now. But relative to a restaurant in use, it will be better than that use.
Right. We had the same exact argument with 3 Parklands.
Exactly.
What's better, a vacant office building or a 60-unit apartment building?
Right.
Traffic is going to go up.
It's gonna go.
It's the same thing with Thorndale Circle. If that,
Yeah.
I think it's in there.
Oh,
It's-
because we struck out the long-term restaurant use, we just struck out number 19.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I don't know if we need to put it in here, but like, that was something I didn't see, and that's something that we've seen it before, we'll see it again, because we're talking about a low use currently because vacancies or whatever, and then to a better use, right, with the actual productive use of this land. But
Successful
it's
use.
gonna, a successful use, but it's gonna make traffic worse than now, not,
And
and
the
all the
Fresh Meadow-
engineers do the study based on as if it were in use,
Yeah.
as fully occupied or blah, blah, blah.
You get all that?
So it's good we did
Traffic will be different when there's a new building.
There, perfect.
There's a new building and it's got.
There is testimony that there will be different traffic, and the traffic
Yeah,
will be different.
we can work on crafting some language that we can circulate to the commission if you'd like us to do that.
Well, does I mean, I don't want to sit in on this for another week just to add one sentence or 2 sentences, right? I
Well,
want to
you-
finish it tonight, so
You're
let's.
doing something with the coloring, right? The ARB piece?
Yeah, we have,
Yeah.
any sign, awning, or facade change in the future requires review by the architecture review board.
Right, because like there's one at exit 25 of these things. You can see the red roof from 26, 27, and 23. So if this gets sold to that, your point, I don't think you need a permit to change the outside color of the building.
I'm happy
What
to
else?
not add mine thing, but I just think maybe I don't know that this one will matter so much, but I think in future applications, it's a common theme where people say, there's no traffic now, and traffic just got worse, and it's like, well, it's vacant now.
well, I mean.
We got beat over the head with that on
Yeah,
3 Parklands.
Murdered on it,
By-
exactly.
By default, though, I mean, don't we make reference to traffic studies that are incorporated and made reference under this resolution? So,
It is included, yeah, but it's like, it's in there somewhere.
I get it, but,
In 20 years from now, is somebody gonna look at this resolution and read the numbers, or are they gonna go dig up the traffic study and look on page 322 to see,
yep.
It's not, yeah, it's 20 years from now. It's also the person that buys the building.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else,
No, that's it.
Mike?
I'm good.
I'm good. I was most concerned about the driveway being aligned
Okay.
and making sure that was a requirement,
Okay.
if in fact the light comes to pass.
So what do you guys want to do? Do you have to need a second crack at this thing, or you want to do it on the fly?
I think I have 5 separate changes. I can go through them real quick.
Yep.
Page 1, changing Stanford to Darien. Then we go to number 19 is struck out. Number 25, we had wording at the end, markings will be maintained in good order and repainted on a periodic basis as necessary. Number 49, we'll start by reading, under current conditions, the design, location, specific details of the proposed use and site development will not materially adversely affect safety in the streets. Then, condition L on page 10, the sentence at the end, this shall be completed within 6 months of the installation of the light. And then the last change will be this sentence we're going to add. I just got to find the right spot, which says, any sign, awning, or facade change in the future requires architecture review board review.
Have they approved the lighting plan? Have you?
The ARB, yes.
Yeah, I thought so, okay. So that matches what we have then.
So we could either put that in as a separate condition, K, or
I would like to see it a separate, and its own new letter.
its own new letter, yeah. So let's say we put it at right before L.
Quick question, a curb cut on a state road, is that something that realistically gets applied for and approved within a 6-month time frame?
Well, they'll apply for it as soon as the traffic light gets approved.
Okay,
The traffic light's gonna be under construction for 6 months.
okay,
Right.
okay, so that's a realistic
I think that's
guardrail?
realistic, because I
Okay.
think, what, to construct that
Yeah.
traffic light,
Yep, it's not gonna
Well,
shock them one
yeah,
day,
no.
oh, there's a light. They're gonna know it's coming in.
Bob Moses is gonna come install it at 11 o'clock
Got
at
it.
night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Got it, I'm good.
All right, so are you're adding the new K now or new L now?
yes.
All right, so do we need to see this again or just let it rip?
Let it rip.
Let it rip?
Mhm.
Okay.
I think possibly Amy and Jamie were not present during the second public hearing night on this application,
I watched it.
if I'm
I
not
watched it.
mistaken.
Oh, yeah, I
Did
watched
watch?
it. Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Yep.
Just wanted to make sure that you're
Yep.
caught up on that.
Yep.
Great,
Yes.
thank you.
All right, so with that said, I would entertain a motion to approve this resolution as edited. Amy makes a motion, Mike makes a second, all those in favor? It's unanimous. I got there. We're gonna get it going to the new car washer. All right,
Thank you all very much.
Good luck.
I appreciate it.
anytime. Next item on the agenda, approval of minutes from September 24th, 2024. We've got a set of minutes. It was, who was here? Is everybody here? It was good. Yeah.
Jim Arts.
Everybody, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Everybody was here. First item was stretch. The only thing that jumps off the page on that one was Amy wanted to make sure that the windows get looked at by ARB. And the applicant doesn't want to go to ARB.
I thought it was, here it says it's shaped with
Yep.
staff. Ms. Mouse responded, any signage would comply with.
He
zoning
wanted to go with
regs
staff.
And the tenant, oh, yes,
And that's when I joked with him. I said, you guys
Yeah.
don't like ARB anymore?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It'll
okay.
be ARB. Two things. One was, maybe it's picking hairs, on page 2, Orange Theory, and I don't know if the word dry cleaner still exists anymore. I think it's just the cleaners. I was just thinking of the word dry.
Is it Greenfield Cleaners? What do they do?
They clean it, it's a dry cleaner, but there's no such thing as a dry cleaner.
Oh,
That's
just put it
contamination.
in as Greenfield Cleaners.
Yeah.
That's good, trivia.
Where is that?
Page 2.
Page 2, paragraph 3. Don't I explain the personal service use, last sentence. Now they share a parking lot with Orange Theory and a dry cleaner.
And Greenfield Cleaners, we're gonna
Yeah,
say.
that's all. The only other thing I want to add on that is, on the next paragraph 10, it was noted that there is now overflow parking at the adjacent property at 320, 330 Boston Pro, which is owned by others.
Yep.
We don't own that thing. And then with regards to the last one, which is 141 West Avenue. Don't we want to put in something that says it was previously approved, but it was, the reason why they applied is because their application expired?
Yes, we can
Just add something like
add
that.
that right after Mr. Wisniewski was present to discuss the application.
So that's what I said to you. I said, Jeremy, didn't we look at this? And you said, yeah, it was pre-COVID.
It
Same
was noted
thing.
that
Yeah.
the previous approval had expired.
Yeah. And then, just to further the thing we're talking about, the lights, at the bottom of page 5, the second to last paragraph, it says, similar to any change to proposed use or site would need to come back before the planning and zoning commission. The commission members agreed any change to signage facade would need to return to architecture review board. That's what I just wanted to get in the resolution, because that was in the minutes. I think that's all I have, right? Yeah. Any other questions, comments, typos, scrivener's errors on this one? Okay.
Yeah.
With that said, entertain a motion to approve as edited. Adam makes a motion. George makes a second. Jamie makes a second.
Bipartisan here.
All those in favor? Bipartisan. It is election
Is
season.
that how we're voting?
6-0, fully approved.
No one's up for election.
Yeah.
No.
Not on our board. Chairman's report, I don't really have a chairman's report tonight. I'll do one for next weekend. Director's report, anything from
Yeah, this kind of came up earlier, but every year, the Board of Ed reaches out to me and gets an update on the developments in town. So I have this spreadsheet I send off to them, is kind of where things stand, how many units are in each building, type of units, et cetera. Ship that off to them. So that just occurred about a week or two ago. So that's how I know that they're working on the document. They've hired the same consultants as they have in the past. I expect, usually the document takes a couple months to turn around, and then a month for it to get on the Board of Ed agenda somewhere along the way. So, right on schedule.
Okay. Anything else, sir? You good?
Nope, we're off next week, and then October 22nd, 2 weeks from tonight, will be the second hearing on the Thorndale Circle application. We might have one or two very minor items on that agenda, but the bulk of the night will be towards that application.
Will ARB have weighed in on that
Well, the ARB is meeting to discuss it a week from tonight,
a week, so next Tuesday, so
Next
to watch
Tuesday.
theirs next Tuesday,
yeah,
ARB.
and then we'll get a sense of how close they are.
Yeah.
And has police commented on that yet?
Police did meet to discuss it. We do not have a report from them yet.
I'm most interested in
Okay. The special meeting on October 9th, everyone's okay with that? I was trying to go against it.
29th, you mean?
Yeah, 29th.
29th, Fred and I were just looking at the applications today. One of the curveballs is Election Day, November 5th. It's very difficult to meet on Election Day. So we're trying to figure out, is it best to try to fit in an extra meeting on October 29th, an hour, hour and a half, and rearrange things so as to try to minimize the chances of meeting in December.
Well, let me go to the next thing. With regards to the POCD people, the thought process is that we would discuss all 3 applicants in executive session,
Mm-hmm.
and then when we come out of executive session, somebody would do the voting. All that would become public.
That's right. So that's
vote
likely
on-
to be the 29th.
That's going to be the 29th?
Well, you weren't going to be here, so if we can't do it the 29th.
I mean, I could be here at another meeting, but the other meeting is for fun. It's like, you know.
Well, you saying this isn't fun?
The other meeting, there's drinks on the table. This one's got water.
We could do that another night, but certainly, or rearrange it, because it would be tough to do it on the 22nd, Thorndale Circle.
We could do it on the 29th. Does everyone want to do it on the 29th and agree, do that part, do the one part in executive session? It is, in terms of dollar numbers, you know, and I think all the dollar numbers fungible. I think the max one is over $1.50, and this one was, what, 129? I think that's a sliding scale.
What we could do is if if you have a conflict, we could do that portion of the meeting earlier in the evening as kind of a special 6:30, whatever, and then just slide into the regular meeting at 7 o'clock. If starting
No,
earlier
I'm
is
not
more
worried about
convenient.
So on the
doing it, but-
29th is the only thing we would discuss would be
No,
the
there'd
three,
be,
okay.
there'd be some, two minor public hearings,
Yeah,
we
there'd be
think.
2 or 3 minor public hearings, and then
Okay.
potentially the discussion of the POCD.
Can we keep punted to 2 weeks?
My preference
the
would be
POCD?
to try to do our best to not meet in December.
Yeah, I don't want to meet in December at all, but I would like
Right.
to make sure that we hire or know who we're going to hire for the
Yeah.
PODC
We have to give
right
them
after,
notice.
right after election day,
Here's what I found.
right? So we want, because I mean, for some, we may say, hey, you know, the maximum budget's $150,000, they could technically say no.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I don't know.
Okay, so you'd vote to meet on the 29th to get that discussion done sooner rather than later.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
I have no trouble with the 29th.
Okay. And I just have a sneaking suspicion, we're gonna be talking about those 3 proposals for a solid 45 minutes. I mean,
Yeah.
they're all really, really good.
Yep.
They all
Yep.
have different angles.
Yep.
You know, we definitely need your guys. I mean, you gotta work with these guys for 2 years.
So we'll put that on October 29th, executive session, and then a vote.
Jeez, okay.
Right, and then we vote, and then who negotiates the contract? Is that,
We would work with them on kind of getting an understanding from the commission and fine tuning it a little bit. We gave them the general parameters in the RFP, but of course, each consultant's coming at it a little differently in terms of scheduling, timing, how much public outreach. The commission might want a little more, a little different, whatever it is. But, so that's what's gonna really take November and December, is for us to button up the contract, give them background information, and start laying out how this thing's gonna run.
because I don't think the commission ever saw the contract once we picked who we picked. You guys did it yourself.
Yeah, as long as it includes everything the commission wants, we're able to
Yeah, well,
get started.
Yeah.
Do we
It's
include buffer
exciting.
room
It's
for,
the only
like,
thing we ever
overages?
spend money on.
Is there some,
We do have money in the budget.
It's already there.
okay,
But-
for overages and?
No.
Tom's always been very, very good in understanding the importance of the document.
Okay, so that's the 29th, we're going to executive session, talk about that one, and then.
Just for
that's it.
public consumption, that money is paid over 2 years at least.
I think 2 or 3, George, you're right.
We got it, we already have it sitting in the quote-unquote ARD fund,
Oh,
because we got like $75,000 in '23, $75,000 in '24.
oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
But you're right, it's been approved as a capital
Do we earn
request.
interest on that?
Oh, yeah, Joan Hendrickson's killing it with the money, with the
Hope
interest.
so.
Oh, so you think you want that to be, no, it's
Yeah,
a
then
general
we-
fund item.
Then we get more money. We
It's-
get a little extra
You
wiggle
don't shit, the
room.
150
You
doesn't
paid
go up.
5% a year. We're talking about,
It's wrapped into the
it's all
slush
bookkeeping.
fund.
Yeah. Okay, 8:45. Anything else? Good? Entertain a motion to adjourn? Adam makes a motion. Anybody else makes a
Mike,
second?
no,
Mike?
Mike?
Mike's not there. I think Jamie made the second.
You give Jamie your second.
All those in favor? Thank you, TV 79.